นะคะสำหรับหัวข้อวันนี้เซสชันนี้นะคะคนที่เราจะเป็น guest speaker ให้เราวันนี้นะคะก็จะช่วยมาแบ่งปันแนวความคิดนะคะในหัวข้อของ balancing spouse and boundary guideline of animal welfare and animal visitor interaction นะคะก็จากท่านวิทยากรของเรานะคะก็เป็นประธานจากคณะกรรมการจริยธรรมและสวัสดิภาพสัตว์ของ SEAZA นะคะขอเสียงปรบมือดังๆให้กับวิทยากรของเรานะคะ Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Willem Manansang ค่ะ
Good afternoon, everyone, distinguished guests, friends and colleagues. Thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to share a presentation, speak about balancing the bonds and boundaries between animal welfare and animal visitor interactions in the zoo. So, why we need to balance and why it matters in modern zoo context of animal welfare and animal interactions. So, as we know that there are three specific and very important animal roles in the modern zoo. One is the animal welfare, where ensuring animals are healthy with positive welfare state, mentally stimulated, and is able to express the natural behavior of the animals. And of course, also the institutional role, the zoo role, that maintaining ethical leadership, but of course to make sure the financial viability and sustainability of the zoo is also very important. And last and not least, of course, is the public engagement. We need to make sure that the public, the visitors that come to our zoo, they enjoy, they can see the animal healthy, they can interact, and of course they can deliver and have a big message for the future generation. Yeah. So there are multifacets of modern zoos. One, because zoo as a custodian of the animal welfare and of course for conservation, to provide expert care, to ensure positive welfare and contribute the species survival in the captivity. And you all as a leaders in research and innovations, we need to contribute to global knowledge through species management, through welfare science and environmental research. And of course, the zoo is a center for public engagement and education. We have to make sure that it inspires awareness about the animal itself and for the immersive education experience. So the visitor will come back again and again. And of course, as mentioned before, financial sustainability for the zoo is very much important. We cannot underestimate that the zoo needs to have financial stability for the zookeepers, for the staffs, and of course for the entire region. So, understanding the animal welfare, everybody knows it's a SEAZA contract. It's a SEAZA context. There is the SEAZA standard on animal welfare that we have developed together with Dr. Fisit, Dr. Sumit. That was 8 years ago. So it's rooted in the regional values while aligning with global welfare standards. And now SEAZA, we can say that we are one of the better associations that have a complete SEAZA standard on animal welfare. And we use 5 domain models, which is the most the current text in terms of animal welfare, assessing the nutrition, the environment, the health, the behavior, and the mental state for a complete picture of their welfare for the animals. And everything that we do, we have to remember it's an evidence-based care, or some people call it the output-based. So it's not just what we as an animal care from curators, vets, technicians give to the animals, but what the animals can get from given the capacity in terms of the captivity environment. And lately, we also have developed the ZAC positions on animal-visitor interactions. So basically, the ZAC, the core declarations of the ZAC animal-visitor interactions is a guideline, a recommendation, even though it's not legally binding, because every country, every region has its own regulations and legislations and local law, but we need to make sure we are in the same page using animal within the interactions to the visitors, including to our own caretakers, the staffs. All interactions must be scientifically grounded, means we need to make sure that we review and maintain the positive welfare of the animals. The activities from photo taking, from keeper talks, from animal presentations or shows, animal feedings, and so many other things. All these activities must align with the ZAC Code of Ethics and Welfare. And I'm sure Dr. Fisit have mentioned this so many times. I'm sure in Thailand, we've done it through our evaluations in other countries, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Vietnam, and all, to make sure the Code of Ethics and Welfare have to be prioritized. And of course, the animal welfare is the top priority, like I mentioned. The interaction must never compromise the animal physical or mental behavior or psychological well-being. And then, of course, the output-based assessment. We have to make sure that behavior observations, they play, rest, alertness, avoidance, social interactions, all these natural behaviors of the animals, we have to make sure that it's maintained. And then the psychological measures, this is based on scientific proof, which is using a cortisol level, reproductive success, appetite, thermoregulations, all these behaviors, all these scientific veterinary health must be maintained. And of course, the health records to make sure that we have to avoid injury, how many frequency, disease incidents, recovery, trends, and all. So visitor interaction activities as a balance of direct and indirect experiences, it will enhance learning, emotional connections, both for the animals, to the keepers, to the guests and visitors, and of course, everything we hope to support the conservation for the future. So direct interactions, for example, animal feeding, touching, petting opportunities in some animal, presentations and training demonstrations from a very simple keeper talks to a very complex storyline animal presentations, and of course some photo opportunities with the animals. Indirect interactions, for example, viewing animal in their naturalistic and immersive habitats, interpretive signage, videos and display, storytelling, and thematic exhibits and education installations that provide visitors, the audience, the guests, an entire experience, different just than looking at one animal in a single exhibit or a single enclosures. So the positive impact for visitors' interactions, for visitors, of course, they will build emotional connections, especially for the young kids. It will provide motivations for the futures, fostering empathy and care for the animals, enhance conservation awareness and understanding of the species, delivers engaging, memorable educational experience also is very important, and increase support for conservation. Again, we hope that having interactions directly with the visitors, they will come back and come back again because they want to learn more and more every day. And the positive impact for visitors, for the zoo and the animals, of course, is encourage repeat visits, donations, public trust is also another key important things, because if the public can trust the zoo is taking care of the animals using all kind of interactions, then the public will understand that even the animals in captivity, they get the better life. Promotes animal stimulations through environmental change and novelty, because again, in captivity, everything is limited for the animals. So we need to provide all these stimulations. So having interactions, both the keepers and the guests, different kind of guests, different kind of people, it stimulates the animal as well. And of course, facilitate positive and rich interactions with the caretakers, and strengthen the bonds between the institution role in education and conservation and community engagement. But of course, everything has a risk. So there are potential risks to animals. So we need to mitigate through staff supervisions, clear guidelines, animal choice, and the routine welfare assessment. So stress and anxiety is always going to be one of the key situations when we're having interactions with the animals. Unnatural and undesirable behaviors, we have to make sure that what we present, the animal interactions, the behavior has to be a natural and normal behaviors of the animals. We don't want them we train to do other things other than the natural and the normal behaviors of the animals. Physical harm, using the positive reinforcement training, we do not do any physical harm to the animals, because everything that we do in the positive reinforcement training is voluntary, and of course the choice for the animals to do what we want, what we ask to do. And of course we have to remember, do not compromise the welfare of the animals. If not managed properly, these interactions can lead to chronic stress and reduce the quality of life. And we have seen many samples, many situations where using the animals, compromising the welfare, especially for the future of that animals, the reproductive situations reduce, physical stress and plucking of the bird feathers, if all the way until stress, overstress, then you can see the sign of the pacing, sign of the animal harming themselves. So how to design an effective animal feeding program, for example? Feeding programs create memorable, close-up guest experience, and foster empathy and conservation awareness. So the purposeful of the exhibit design must support safety interactions, could include elevated platform, protected context for several species of the animals, and clear escape routes for the animals if the animals doesn't want to take part in these interactions. We have to design with the animal choice, visibility, and guest flow, because we don't want the guests overcrowded the animals that the animals feel confined, the animal feels scared, and of course the safety for both the animals and the people. And the animal readiness, we have to train the foundation behaviors from targeting, recall, shifting, and the feeding of the species have to be species appropriate and using the positive reinforcement. So the case of a case study for the giraffe feeding platform, we have to make sure the height of the animals. For example, of this giraffe, we have to remember that the giraffe have a very alert situations where if one giraffe get really scared and swing the head, it can have a possibility of injuring the people. So the structured and supervised, but we can also provide for the guests an experience of their lifetime, having a breakfast, having a lunch, or even having a dinner with the giraffe. The positive outcomes is, of course, increased visitor empathy, and the zoo also bring on more conservations, more funding, and the animal consideration, of course, sufficient staff to make sure it rotate the individuals. You need to make sure that the animals have a time. They cannot do this interactions for the whole day. You have to have the schedule for it. And how about to design a responsible animal photography program? Some key consideration that we can do is species appropriate setup to ensure the shades, the water, the hazard-free environments for the animals, and must be supervised at all time. Safe and ethical interactions, no handling of dangerous species in front of the guests that in direct contact, use of protected contact if necessary, and of course the animal welfare and preparation. So the animals should be desensitized to camera flashes, and some places we cannot do any flashes. Rotate the individuals to avoid overstimulations. Provide back of the house area for rest and natural behavior. And how to design the animal presentations with welfare in mind. So some of the key technical aspect that needs to be prepared. Again, use an appropriate barriers and distance and time limits to reduce the stress of the animal. Ensure training the staff, supervise and guide all the interactions. Select animal based on the suitability, the temperament, the species appropriateness, collection planning. Also, another key important thing, we don't want to have too many collections planned, and once after the interactions, we don't have any place for the animals to have a quality of life. A back of the house design to make sure once they do interactions, they can go back, they can rest, they can have a place for them to not just a confined single cage. Make interactions positive and enriching the animals. For instance, for this one, for the case study, we want to produce to show the audience, the visitors, how fast a cheetah runs. All in all, you have to use a positive reinforcement training, and proper desensitized protocols. And of course, again, the whole interaction zones is welfare for both the animals and the guest comfort. So positive reinforcement, I think I'm pretty sure everybody have known about this. It's a science-based, reward-driven method widely adopted by SEAZA in the world and other modern zoos to build trust, reduce stress, and promote voluntary cooperations. So the applications for this positive reinforcement, we can start from the very simple until all the way up to the very complex training, but definitely can be used for healthcare and husbandry, target training, animal presentations, and protected contact condition. And then the foundation behaviors for animal interactions. Animals and birds in program should be trained in key foundation behaviors to enhance the welfare and the guest experience. Shifting on cue, animals can be cued to move from one place to another locations. For example, macaws moving enclosures on command, targeting animals. So animal can learn how to be targeted as a part of behavior shaping. For instance, the primate to open their mouth for the health check and recall. Animals respond promptly to recall cues. Giraffes can be called coming immediately, which is essential for both the safety and emergency situations. Advanced animal behaviors, why it matters, because again, training husbandry behaviors is supporting the animal health general checkup and provides powerful opportunities to educate the guests. The guests can see directly how we take blood draw, check up on the hoofstocks, big animals, big mammals. Example of training behaviors: blood draw, ultrasound positioning, and ECG participations for marine mammals, big cats, elephants, primates, open mouth, body part presentations, stopping on a scale, injection training, many things. These behaviors can be safely demonstrated during a presentations to highlight how the cooperative care of the animals between the caretakers, the vets, and the animals. And of course, a complex animal presentations, a thoughtful design and storyline presentations can inspire empathy, spark conservation actions, and reflect the highest standards on welfare and educations. We can develop storylines aligned with the zoo's mission, select species and individual base and welfare for suitability, train natural behaviors, and tell the public why the animals are doing this. Emphasize voluntary participations and conservation methods. Avoid trick-style behaviors that misrepresent the animals. These are very basic, but also something that not many zoos are able to prepare and do a complex animal presentations. And we have to make sure that trick shot or like a circus-like unnatural behaviors, we need to stop training that animal for their presentations. Again, voluntary participation from the animals in the presentations. So ethical practice and animal dignity. We need to show them how the animals is represented in the highest dignity and respect as the ambassadors of their species and not just perform,
bring something else.
combining again with the storyline. These are the
Would you like?
interactions that will be reminded by the public, especially for the young kids, young adults, for the future.
Hey, which kind of out? Wow, it's your house. Hey, guys, yourself.
Staff as an interpreters and welfare guardians has a dual role as a staff serving as both the educators and of course the animal welfare advocates. Ongoing training for staff. These kind of zoo conferences where caretakers visit the vets will be able to share from each other how they can do animal training and behavior modifications, interpreting animal behavior for public understanding and public engagement with messaging techniques. We need to empower and equip the staff to intervene, adjust routine or pause interactions if the welfare of the animal is at risk, and make sure that consistent messaging to reinforce the facility's welfare first narrative in guest interactions. And as mentioned, regular monitoring and evaluations, self-welfare audits or self-assessment based on any kind of established frameworks, for example, in SEAZA, behavior tracking to detect any stress from the beginning, anticipate and avoid that kind of patterns. And we need to ask the visitor for feedback, surveys, experience the impact, evaluate any changes if necessary. Again, and don't forget engaging the public responsibly from the pre-visit educations, a clear on-site message of the conservation and the welfare of the species, and the post-interaction reflection tools. Prompt surveys, interactive displays, what they have learned, how the animals responded, their role in wildlife protections. So in SEAZA Animal and Visitor Interaction Guideline that will be coming up very soon, SEAZA institution must remain committed to continuous improvement by adopting the latest scientific findings and welfare standards. The ethical responsibility towards animal under human care is an evolving journey, and through collaborations, research, and dedication, we can ensure that the balance between conservation education and animal welfare is always maintained. In conclusion, when done ethically and thoughtfully, animal visitor interactions have the power to inspire or foster empathy, ignite lifelong connections with the wildlife. These programs don't just entertain, but they educate, transform perspective, and build a foundation for a more compassionate future. Thank you.
ค่ะเดี๋ยวแปลสรุปคร่าวๆเนาะพอไหวกันมั้ยเมื่อกี้แบบเงียบตึ้งไม่แน่ใจเหมือนกันนะคะก็อย่างที่คุณวิลเลียมอะค่ะเขาพูดภาพกว้างๆเนาะว่าวันนี้สวนสัตว์ณปัจจุบันเนาะเราเปลี่ยนแปลงมุมมองกันเป็นค่อนข้างเยอะแล้วแหละเราทำหน้าที่ค่อนข้างหลายอย่างเราไม่ได้ทำหน้าที่แค่เป็นแบบเหมือนสวนสัตว์ให้คนมาเที่ยวแล้วจบไปแต่มันยังมีมิติอื่นด้วยอะค่ะมิติของการให้ความรู้กับคนเราจะต้องทำรีเสิร์ชด้วยเนาะเราจะต้องทำการตลาดด้วยเรามีกิจกรรมหลายๆอย่างที่เกิดขึ้นในสวนสัตว์ซึ่งเป็นมิติใหม่ของวันนี้นะคะก็นอกเหนือจากที่เราบอกค่ะว่าในอดีตอะค่ะเราอาจจะมองแค่ว่าเป็นแบบที่พักผ่อนหย่อนใจอย่างเดียวค่ะแต่ว่าวันนี้มันเริ่มมีมิติที่มันแบบเพิ่มเติมขึ้นมาที่เราพูดกันถึงเรื่องของ animal welfare ค่อนข้างบ่อยนะคะ นอกพื้นฐานของ animal welfare หลายๆสวนสัตว์น่าจะค่อนข้างจะเข้าใจกันแล้วบนพื้นฐานของไอ้5 domain เนี่ยค่ะแต่วันนี้มันจะมีอีกอันนึงที่เขาพูดถึงในเรื่องของกิจกรรมที่ใช้ปฏิสัมพันธ์ระหว่างนักท่องเที่ยวกับตัวสัตว์นะคะก็กิจกรรมที่คิดว่าหลายๆสวนสัตว์แล้วก็เราเคยเห็นกันเนาะไม่ว่าจะเป็นกิจกรรมเรื่องของการโชว์สัตว์การป้อนอาหารสัตว์การถ่ายรูปกับตัวสัตว์เนี่ยค่ะเป็นกิจกรรมซึ่งโอเคมันอาจจะสร้าง engage หรือสร้างความสัมพันธ์ที่ดีเนาะทำให้นักท่องเที่ยวเนี่ยอยากจะกลับมาสวนสัตว์อีกครั้งหนึ่งมันเพิ่มในเรื่องของรายได้ของเราเรื่องของกิจกรรมของเราก็จริงแต่เขามาให้กำลังให้มองอีกมุมหนึ่งอะค่ะว่านอกเหนือกิจกรรมพวกนี้เราอะค่ะอยากให้มองเราอาจจะเสริมเนาะในเรื่องของคนเรื่องของนักท่องเที่ยวก็จริงอะค่ะแต่ว่ามุมของตัวสัตว์อะค่ะให้กลับมาด้วยว่ากิจกรรมเหล่านี้ค่ะส่งผลกระทบอะไรต่อตัวสัตว์หรือเปล่าไม่ว่าให้ได้ดูแบบว่ามันเครียดหรือเปล่านะคะนั้นอาจจะเป็น point หนึ่งที่เขาก็อยากบอกว่าให้กลับไปดูอีกทีนึงนะกิจกรรมเหล่านี้มันถ้าเกิดมันส่งผลต่อความเครียดแม้แต่การฝึกสัตว์อะค่ะซึ่งเราเห็นเนาะ animal presentation หรือว่าการโชว์สัตว์ทั้งหลายกระบวนการฝึกสัตว์เนี่ยบางครั้งมันอาจจะทำให้สัตว์เกิดการบาดเจ็บก็ได้เพราะฉะนั้นในตัวเหมือนไกด์ไลน์ใหม่หรือแนวทางปฏิบัติใหม่อะค่ะที่เขาจะเกิดขึ้นมาเขาจะมุ่งประเด็นในเรื่องของกิจกรรมที่มันเกิดขึ้นที่เราทำกันอยู่นะคะระหว่างนักท่องเที่ยวเองกับตัวสัตว์เองอะค่ะแล้วก็ที่บอกกับการฝึกก็มุ่งในเชิงบวกนะคะก็ก่อนหน้านี้ที่เราจับบังคับสัตว์ในการแสดงสัตว์ต่างๆค่ะอาจจะไม่ได้เป็นผลดีเท่าไหร่นักวันนี้น่าจะเป็นในมุมของการใช้การฝึกสัตว์แบบเชิงบวกนะคะแล้วเขาก็คงจะแบบยกตัวอย่างหลายๆตัวอย่างให้เราดูว่ามีตัวอย่างแบบไหนอะไรบ้างแล้วสิ่งหนึ่งที่จะช่วยแก้ไขมีอะไรบ้างนะคะอย่างเช่นการออกแบบส่วนที่เราจะทำการแสดงขึ้นมาเนี่ยค่ะควรจะมีการออกแบบไหนซึ่งโอเคมันอาจจะมีปฏิสัมพันธ์ระหว่างคนนักท่องเที่ยวเองด้วยกับตัวสัตว์เองด้วยแต่ก็ต้องมั่นใจว่ามันปลอดภัยในที่นี้ค่ะไม่ใช่ปลอดภัยเฉพาะนักท่องเที่ยวเองแต่ว่าต้องปลอดภัยกับตัวสัตว์ด้วยเช่นกันนะคะแล้วก็น่าจะสุดท้ายแล้วอะค่ะสิ่งหนึ่งที่เขาอยากสื่อสารออกไปอะค่ะว่ามันนอกเหนือจากกิจกรรมอะค่ะแต่ให้มองในเรื่องของแมสเสจที่เราจะส่งไปเราต้องมั่นใจนะคะว่าแมสเสจที่เราจะส่งไปกับนักท่องเที่ยวอะค่ะเป็นแมสเสจในเชิงบวกว่าสัตว์เหล่านี้ค่ะมีพฤติกรรมในการที่เราโชว์ออกมาแสดงพฤติกรรมออกมาเนี่ยมันเป็นพฤติกรรมตามธรรมชาติแบบไหนอะไรยังไงนะคะก็น่าจะเป็นอีกมิติหนึ่งของการสื่อสารนะคะ